Greetings, friends. Welcome back to Backyard Astronomy with Gemini Brett. It is 8:28 p.m. on Thursday, Jupiter's Day, September 12th, 2024, and I'm recording from my backyard in Richmond, California. We're gazing at a moon who remains significantly out of bounds south. If you look to the thumbnail for this video, you can clearly see the moon's phase. Moon is applying to the waxing trine. Sun right now around 21 tropical Virgo. So when moon gets to 21 Capricorn, then we're at the trine, right? Trine's the triangle between signs of the same elements of Virgo and Capricorn Earth, yes? But moon's not quite to that 121 space yet. We'll see a clearer image of the shape of moon's smile when waxing trine away from sun in the sky tomorrow, clouds allowing. Right now, moon is at 1342 Capricorn, sun at 2050 Virgo, so they're more like 113 degrees apart. That would be their phase angle, right? I'm going to check in with the moon app, and I'm shown there that the moon is currently 69.5% illuminated here on day 11, they call it, or 10.2 days from new moon time. And consider that, right? The sun moves on average 1 degree per day, the moon on average 13 degrees per day. And so each day as moon separates from the sun, the difference between them increases by 12 degrees, right? So 12 degrees per day. Well, how long would that take to go from 0 degrees aspect, in other words, the conjunction of moon and sun, the new moon, to 120 degrees? And of course, the answer would be 10 days, right? 10 times 12 being 120 degrees, the trine. Well, as we've discussed before, orbits are not circles, they are ellipses, and moon got a slow start to this particular cycle. Like, there will be more days between new moon and full moon in this particular cycle than there will be between full and new. And moon's actually picking up speed right now. So things to consider as you are connecting with moon and the phases of moon, which of course shows us how moon is reflecting sunlight to earth, right? This connection of the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world, to quote the Emerald Tablets of Hermes, which I believe are sun, moon, earth, spirit, soul, matter, circle, crescent, and cross. Okay. Well, still we find this amazing happening of moon out of bounds. So I want to trace the ecliptic for you. Let's turn our head. Well, you can see Antares here on the right of your screen. Let's go a little bit further. Isabel always gets excited about Antares. And I want to trace the ecliptic plane for you through these constellations that you see on the screen. So the ecliptic, as we've discussed before, it arcs beneath A-Crab here. Okay, I don't know the name of this little star that's like A-Crab's partner, but sorry, apple tree, that's that reflection that you're experiencing. But the ecliptic's very close there. And then, as we saw yesterday or last night, the ecliptic goes slightly above Garafsa here, the knee of the serpent bearer, Ophiuchus. Well, these three stars of the Archer's bow are the Caus stars. So Caus Borealis, which means north, Caus Medius, Caus Australis, which means south, right? And the ecliptic heads north of Caus Borealis. Okay, and then it goes just beneath what I call the Cape stars, because many of, at least the modern apps, show these stars like in the cape of the Centaur, that is the Archer, as it's seen these days and for some time now. Anyway, the ecliptic's going to continue, and it comes beneath the horns of the sea goat. Okay, so it kind of does this. So you're seeing moon, once again, well south of the ecliptic plane. Moon's south node, where her path crosses the sun's currently, oh, let me see in a chart. Currently at 643 tropical Libra, and moon's right now at 1346 tropical Capricorn. So basically square the node, which is the bending, which is where moon goes furthest south of the ecliptic. And as I've discussed in length in recent times, now the moon is out of bounds because she's taking that southern extreme in latitude, her distance south of the ecliptic, and adding it to the degrees of the zodiac. And I'm talking about Earth zodiac, the directional zodiac, the tropical zodiac, that are already most south of the equator, right? So the Tropic of Capricorn being the degree of the sun's path, the heart of the zodiac, the ecliptic plane that is most south of the equator. And so we're already in the very southern expressions of the heavens, at least in regards to the path of the sun and for the most part the planets, because our solar system is relatively flat. And of course that means in the northern hemisphere sky like this, southern extreme means low, right? And so moon's taking the lowest zodiac degree and then going even 5 degrees south of that and to a place like the moon is culminating right now at a space here that is lower than the midday sun at Capricorn solstice, solstice time, winter solstice time for the northern hemisphere, right? Which would be kind of up here, right? Because the sun is, of course, always on the sun's path, right? And really, zero Capricorn's more kind of in this zone. But hopefully you get the point. I think I've driven that home a little bit too much. What I want to return to is learning to see the angles of the chart in space with your face, in the sky with your eye. So remember, I think it was in the video last night, we met how to find the MC degree. Now you need to know the degrees of the stars right on the ecliptic plane, and that takes some work, but you can follow the moon to do this, right? You cast a chart. I can see the moon's at 1346 right now. It's like, okay, well, so are these stars that are close. Now, I don't know the name of some of the stars like this one here. I will say that this bright star is Nunki, who I know to be around 12.5 degrees tropical Capricorn. So you can see the moon is just past the Nunki longitudes, right? Okay, so remember, we're going to get directions. So get ready. We're going to spin around here. And what I'm doing is taking you to see Polaris. Right, so we can follow the pointer sisters of the Big Dipper to Polaris, whose altitude will equal your terrestrial latitude. So I'm at 38 degrees north of Earth's equator here in Richmond, California. Polaris, 38 degrees above the ground. We can see Cassiopeia here, who also generally opens up towards Polaris as well. So I am looking north. Okay, well, now I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm just going to put the lens right between me and Polaris and tighten up things here. And so I've just pointed the camera south, right? I like to put a chair between me and Polaris. Like, that's a way to play. Let me just straighten this out. And so, you know, we've chosen this space because, as we found by working with midheaven stars at the time, where I'm standing here in my backyard kind of utilizes this tree as a midheaven tree. Now, I like to stand somewhere over there and use this tree as a midheaven tree, but it's not going to work right now because the moon is so low. And I can't really work the scorpion or the archer from that tree anyway. I mean, right now you see the horns of the goat sitting on that tree, okay? But this is our midheaven. So what we just found, I mean, look at how the moon is like completely centered, right? And the moon's south of the ecliptic, which runs here. So we have to be careful, because when I say the moon's at 1345 Capricorn, I'm drawing a perpendicular line up to the ecliptic path, right? Like this. But regardless, the moon is just right now at the meridian. The moon is culminating right now. So if I cast a chart, and let's do that, we're going to find that the midheaven at this time is like 1345 Capricorn. Now, how would I really do that without a chart when I'm out in the sky? Well, I would work with Nunki. Because I know that Nunki, in our day and age, is positioned at like 12.5 Capricorn. That's how I know Nunki. It's actually in the year 2025, and we're getting close here in 2024. 1244 tropical Capricorn, and 3.5 degrees south of the ecliptic plane, okay? So you can see how much further south Moon is right now, but Moon's very close to the Nunki longitudes. See? So that's how I would do. It's like, okay, well, she's past Nunki, and Nunki's 1245, so Moon's like 13 at 45. It's a degree apart. You know, that's how I would get there. And that is, in fact, true right now, that the Moon's at 1345 tropical Capricorn, and the Moon has just culminated. I just hit the now button. It's now 8:39:41 p.m. Richmond, California, on September 12th, 2024. 9, 12, 24, wonderful numbers these are. And so we've just seen Moon reach her peak. She has culminated. This is the highest the Moon will get in her course tonight, and now she's on the way down, right? So in quadrant house systems, where the midheaven, the MC degree, where the ecliptic intersects the meridian, right? The meridian separating the east, which goes up, from the west, which goes down, right? In quadrant systems like Placidus, Porphyry, Campanus, Regiomontanus, what have you, the MC degree is the cusp of the 10th house. We're going to move next onto how to find the ascendant in the sky. And the key is that we're not going to do this by looking east, right? I would have to do some significant guesswork. When I look in this direction, I can definitely see the goat. Here's the goat's horns. Here's the goat's tail. Center of the goat, dorsum. And by the way, in our day and age, it's like 5 tropical Aquarius, 15 tropical Aquarius, 25. Maybe more like 4, 14, and 24, okay? And then I know after the sea goat, we have the water bearer. Actually, you can even see water bearer stars, which reach kind of into sea goat space. Here's Albali, kind of the end of the water bearer's pole, upon which he holds this heavy water jug here, which pours the water down onto that tree. If we wait just a little bit, we'd see Saturn there. But I can't because of these trees, you know. It's a fun example of one of the reasons why maybe traditionally the 12th house is associated with hidden things. By the way, if I get tall here, I can see Saturn. Anyway, we'll see Saturn later. I can see over here, towards the north of all that, the great square of Pegasus. And I use the great square to locate the fishes of the heavens who are so dim. If the house was in the way, I might even see the stars of the Ram rising now. Right? So it's like, wait a second, the ascendant's like way over there, behind the house. Like, I'm never going to see it from this place. Well, I'm going to teach you how to work with the south to find what is rising in the east. Wait, what? That's insane. By the way, if you're in the southern hemisphere, you would work with the north. Now, due south in any locations like California, which are north of the Tropic of Cancer, right? So temperate northern climes. The MC degree, as we've discussed, is always, 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 always due south. Right, and so that's how I know that the moon is just culminated. I've aligned myself between Polaris and that tree, meaning this tree is marking my meridian, and the moon has just passed it, right? So now she's cadent, which means falling on the way down. Okay. Well, I think what I'm going to do from here is set up a time lapse. And last time I tried this, it flailed, so hopefully that won't be the case now. I hesitate because it means I'm going to have to do a bunch of editing. But I think what you are going to experience is this video, then a time lapse, and then a video in a couple hours. So you can watch stars culminate. What you're going to see, and you can expect to see, is that the horns of the goat here are going to climb up to their peak, because everything will culminate at the meridian, right? In the northern hemisphere like this, everything will south. Everything on the ecliptic will south before it starts heading down. Okay, so you're going to get to see in this time lapse the moon head down. You're going to get to see the horns of the goat come up. And my plan is to come out here when this star, Dorsum, between the horns, these two, and the tail of the sea goat, when that culminates. So when this star is on this tree, hopefully the time lapse lasts until then, and I can stay awake long enough to be out here and record the next part of this video. All right, sounds like a plan. Okay, well, sadly the time lapse did not work out, so we are going to utilize Stellarium astronomy software to take us through 2 hours of the spinning sky in about 1 minute of time. Stellarium's kind of nice because we can see that Milky Way band with galactic center there marked between the stinger of the scorpion, the arrow of the archer, and the knee of Ophiuchus the serpent bearer. So clearly we see the moon now falling away from its meridian height. It has culminated, it's on the way down, and now we find the horns of the goat coming to their peak, right halfway between the time they rose and the time they will set. They culminate there. And in the northern hemisphere, at least north of the Tropic of Cancer, that's going to happen in the south. And now we find the kind of mid section of the sea goat coming up to the midheaven, and that's where the time lapse I recorded but didn't record stopped. Okay, here we are on the other side of that time lapse. So you got to see a goat climb a tree and see the moon very much on the way down, right, with the stars of the archer. I'm not in the best position here to show you the western horizon because of this apple tree, but the moon is going to set in a place well south of Solstice Hill, the birthing tree, where I, from my point of view, get to see the December solstice sunset. The birthing tree, because of course December solstice means winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, and the birthing tree meaning out of the longest night, the light is reborn. I should say it is now 10:44 p.m. on Thursday, Jupiter's Day, September 12th, 2024. And I'm recording from my backyard in Richmond, California with the crickets. And we have positioned the camera in such a way that the center of this tree is marking our meridian. And so you can see this star there right now. Okay, so here we have the horns of the goat. In our day and age, like 4 degrees tropical Aquarius. And the ecliptic, which comes here north of Nunki, is beneath the horns of the goat. And see these stars here? Like, it's often drawn like this is the face of the goat. The ecliptic goes right through them and then goes right through Dorsum, which is at, in our day and age, 14 degrees tropical Aquarius. In 2025, I just looked 14 degrees and 12 minutes tropical Aquarius. So 412, 1412, and then 24 for Deneb el-Jadi, which means tail of the goat. Okay, so right now, Dorsum, or Theta Capricornus, this star here, 14 Aquarius, is at the midheaven. Right, so I can cast a chart and I will find 14 Aquarius at the midheaven. Now, before I do, I don't want to cheat. I want to see if I can get this right. I want to find the ascendant too. And we're not going to see the ascendant through the trees, or in this case, the houses. So let's tune in. I'm going to get some full goat here on your screen. Sorry, this alarm's telling me to come out and do this thing. So I guess we're going to have to come up just a little bit, or just over. Like I said, the two horns of the goat, back of the goat, tail of the goat, right? Water bearer reaches his arm above the goat, or the pole upon which the water jug is supported, here to al-Bali, right? And then Sado Salud, Sado Malik, often shown as the head of the water bearer. Here's the water jug pouring water down. Saturn's about to take a drink. Looks like the tree is maybe blocking our view of Famolo, of the royal star, the eye of the fish. Okay, anyway, from the water bearer, let's come over here to the great square of Pegasus, okay, which helps us find the head of the fish. This is the ringlet, so one of the fish's heads, and then we come down to the knot, and then up on the other side of the water bearer to the other, or sorry, the square of Pegasus to the other fish's head. Don't want to shoot these laser pointers at planes, it's really not cool. So let me just take a minute. It's coming down like the plane. Let's just use the plane as our laser pointer. Thank you, plane. The plane is showing us right now the head of the ram. It's going to fly right through Sheraton and Hamal. That's Sheraton that I just touched, and then Hamal is the bright star of the ram here, right in the ram constellations like this. So the ram's north of the ecliptic plane. Saturn right now is just a bit south of the ecliptic plane. So basically the ecliptic's kind of coming up like this. Okay, well, that doesn't help when the thing is spinning so quickly. But let's just zoom into this zone of the sky. Right, we saw that, and the more I talk, the less it's going to be true, that dorsum is currently culminating. Right, if I face the tree, we really get to see that dorsum is right at the center of the tree. So again, midheaven right now is about 14 Aquarius, but that does not mean the ascendant will be 14 Taurus. Where do I get to 14 Taurus? That's 90 degrees from 14 Aquarius, right? Like, how often do you see a chart where the midheaven and the ascendant degrees are square? By the way, the answer is it happens twice a day. That doesn't mean it's the answer to how often do you see a chart, but it does happen twice a day where the ascendant and the midheaven are square, and it's when the ascendant is due east, which only happens with the equinox points rising. So when 0 Aries rises, 0 Capricorn's at the midheaven. When 0 Libra rises, 0 Cancer's at the midheaven. Otherwise, you don't get a perfect square between your ascending degree and your culminating degree, between the ascendant and the midheaven, and therefore between the midheaven and the descendant, etc. Only when the equinoxes rise do we get that perfect kind of cross of the chart. So, how do we find the ascendant? We find the highest part of the ecliptic plane in any given moment. It's often taught that the midheaven's directly above your head. No, okay, so right now, our midheaven star, which is where the ecliptic intersects the meridian, is dorsum, 14 degrees tropical Aquarius. Let me show you the zenith. It's way up here, right? And that's not even it. Like, I can't even point the camera fully up, right? So, you know, don't listen when people tell you the midheaven's above your head. In fact, the MC degree where the ecliptic intersects the meridian, and therefore what is culminating, moving from on the way up to on the way down, the midheaven degrees, it's not even the highest part of the ecliptic in any given moment in time. And that point of the ecliptic, that's the key to finding the ascendant, even though we can't see, typically, like, you know, we often have cases like this where we can't see trees or through houses, etc., right? So my job right now is to find the highest point of the ecliptic plane. Okay, and let's look at Saturn here. okay? You can see how Saturn's at a higher altitude than Dorsum. And you know, things get weird. Like, watch what happens when I turn the camera this way. Now Dorsum appears to be way higher than Saturn. Let me turn the camera this way. Now Saturn appears to be way, way higher than Dorsum. See how that works? That's a trip. By the way, that's not just cameras. Like, you'll notice that with your eyes. When you get outside, when you turn your shoulders, and you're shifting from like looking directly at a thing to seeing it more in periphery. There's some amazing weirdness that happens with the dome of the heavens as you turn around here on the Earth. And so what you got to do is, I call it throwing the discus. So I'll take my hand and I'll move it through the ecliptic stars, and I'll just swing it back and forth. And I mean all the way from what is setting on the western horizon, or as far as I can see in that direction, right? So I'm kind of coming up here. And then, so up here, okay, and then I'll bring that all the way until what I can see rising in the eastern horizon. So I'm doing this, okay. Let me just turn this to our midheaven again. And so I just can't do that with you here on camera. You've got to get outside and do it yourself. You got to learn your ecliptic stars, and then just throw the discus, just trace the ecliptic curve, okay? And I'll just do that back and forth from the western horizon to the eastern horizon. In this case, by the way, southwest, because what is setting right now is the Scorpion. It's tropical Sagittarius, a very southern sign, the most southern sign, along with tropical Capricorn. And when the Sagittarius is setting, of course, Gemini is rising, right? And so, I mean, there's a clue already. I mean, I might get the ascendant by watching what's setting in the west, but instead I'm going to find my highest star. And so right now I'm aligning my shoulders to the southwest descendant and the northeast ascendant. And then I find that my heart, when I do, it's not facing my midheaven tree. It's not facing the directions of Gaia. Midheaven is south, the IC is north, in the northern hemisphere, by the way. But that's when my shoulders are east and west, and the ascendant is only east-west twice a day. That's when the equinox points rise and set. Otherwise, like a rudder, the ascendant-descendant axis is ruddering back and forth against the cardinal directions, which is why, by the way, the ascendant's called the oiox, which means rudder in Greek. Or some pronunciations suggest iakos. Okay, so what's my highest star? And as I'm kind of tracing back and forth on this ecliptic plane, I just get my hand moving along the curve, and then I'll eventually close my eyes, so that as I'm sweeping my hand back and forth from one horizon to the next, I just kind of stop in the middle at what's highest. And as I just did that, I'm actually currently pointing super close to Saturn. I am pointing, let me point you where I ended up, and it is right here. Okay, well, what are we looking at? Who is that? Ancha? No, Hydor. Yeah. So this star, so let me go, here's the goat, here's the tail of the goat, right? Here's the kind of the arm or the yoke of the water bearer. Then we get the lucky stars, Sadal Saud, Sadal Malik, Sadal Chiba, Sadal Tajer, like this is the water jug. All of this is well above the ecliptic plane, by the way, which is doing like this. Okay, the ecliptic goes right through the star, very close. That star that is called Hydor. And where does Hydor? Hydor is at like 12 tropical Pisces in our day and age. Maybe 11 tropical Pisces. Well, I'm just looking at a map that I made, 1155, so 12 tropical Pisces. And from what I can tell, that is the star of the ecliptic plane that is currently at the peak of the curve. Okay, so some call that the zenith, because though it's certainly not right above our head, unlike the midheaven degree, which is the degree that is culminating, the so-called zenith point is the point of the ecliptic that's closest to the zenith, closest to the top of the sky. Another name for it is the nonagesimal, okay, which is boring. It just means 90 degrees away, but that's our key to finding the ascendant through the trees. Because if we can find the degree of the ecliptic curve that is currently on high, we simply add 90 degrees of celestial longitude, or 3 signs worth of sky, and we get to our ascendant degree. Or subtract 90 degrees and we have our descendant degree, okay? So if 12 Pisces is indeed the high star right now, then 12 Gemini is rising and 12 Sagittarius is setting. Let's look back to, before I cast a chart, let's look back to the midheaven tree over here, right? We're standing in this place to have the midheaven, and hopefully now you can see I've been talking so long that dorsum is no longer culminating. It's on its way down. Well, just consider for a second, dorsum's at the cross quarter points, 14 degrees tropical Aquarius. Well, Aquarius is a lower sign in the northern hemisphere sky than Pisces. So do you see why, like, Saturn here currently in Pisces is going to climb to a higher height than where we see dorsum now? Right, so like dorsum is culminating, dorsum is reaching its highest height, already has, it's already on the way down. And the tail of the goat is on its way to culminate. So it's reaching its particular highest height, but that doesn't mean it's the highest part of the zodiac. Of course, that's 0 tropical Cancer in northern hemisphere skies, right? So all the signs, they have different altitudes that they reach. From the Tropic of Capricorn, the lowest altitude, to the Tropic of Cancer, the highest altitude in northern hemisphere skies. And Aquarius, of course, is closer to Capricorn than it is to Cancer, or Pisces, like where Saturn is currently located, is closer to the middle degrees, that's the equinox point, than Aquarius is. Aquarius is a low sign. You see what I mean? So Pisces is going to culminate higher. So anyway, right now, I found that, I believe Hydor's on high as far as the ecliptic curve in this moment goes. Let's get our midheaven now. Well, it's no longer dorsum. Dorsum's on the way down. It's definitely not the tail of the goat yet. It's Nishira and Deneville Jetty. It's like 24 degrees tropical Aquarius. So it's somewhere between 14 and 24. It's like 18. So I think if I cast a chart right now, I'm going to get 18 Aquarius at the midheaven. And something like, because 12 Pisces, Hydor is my like high point, 12 Gemini rising. So 12 Gemini rising, 18 Aquarius at the midheaven. It's now 10:59 p.m. September 12th, 2024, Richmond, California. I'm going to cast that chart. It's 10:59 and change, by the way. Let me just hit the now button on my chart. And I see that the midheaven, 1748 Aquarius. I said 18. And the ascendant, 1014 Gemini. I said 12 Gemini. So by the way, that means that Hydor is not currently the high point. It's like over here, right? So it's tricky when we don't have stars there. But just looking at the sky, by working first with the meridian, by working with the south point, the south line, the meridian line, finding the midheaven degree, right? And you saw what I did. It's like this is 14, this is 24, or somewhere in between. Closer to the 14 side than the 24 side, you can just see that, right? So it's much, much easier to get the midheaven than the ascendant. Including, even if you're like have an elevated view and you're looking at a flat horizon, like there's often humidity, fog, pollution, whatever on the horizons. Like we're up above the vapors, to use the words of Galileo, as he wrote in an astrology chart that he cast for Cosimo di Medici II. Anyway, so it's easier to work with, first of all, cardinal direction. I can just build a temple with a window that faces south, and they're all over the world. In the northern hemisphere, I'm sure in the southern hemisphere, north-facing windows. So you can just work the culminating stars. And it's about 4 minutes per degree, okay? Where at the ascendant, they rise at significantly different times. There are signs that rise fast, there are signs that rise slow, but all of the degrees of the zodiac culminate at the same rate. So working the midheaven is like way more accurate than working the ascendant. And again, to find the ascendant, because it's typically like this, I'm out somewhere where I can't see. There's trees, there's houses, there's hills, whatever. Right, what I do is I find what's on high, and it's really hard to do this. Like, I think if I had a full wide angle lens, it'd be a little bit easier. But it was just really easy as I was tracing through the stars of the ecliptic to find that. Okay. And I had set an alarm for the culmination of Dorsum, because Dorsum was culminating when I was born. But I was born in Boston. It pairs with a different ecliptic degree, and then I talked so much that I missed my opportunity to see how they pair. I can do that in a chart, but I'd rather do it in the sky. That way I have a physical experience of the thing, and it's not just in the mind, it's in my body mind, right? That's why I call my school the School of Earth Astrology, right? We want it in the body. All right. Anyway, so got within half a degree of the midheaven just then? I forgot already, and I know I got within 2 degrees of the ascendant. I am happy. Now, you can get within 2 degrees of the ascendant, and for me, I'm happy if I'm within 3 degrees of the midheaven, finding the angles in this way, simply by, aligning myself to the meridian. If I can get within 1 to 3 degrees of knowing what zodiac degree is currently culminating, I'm happy. I mean, that's a tight criterion, right? I mean, preferred to be within 1 degree. You really can get there. It's easier with some parts of the sky where we have like ecliptic stars than it is with others. But finding the highest star, or especially if there's not a star there, the highest part of the ecliptic curve in any given moment, that's a much trickier thing. But if you get out and you practice this, you get pretty good at it. So I'm happy if I'm within 3 to 5 degrees of the ascendant by finding the nonagesimal, by finding the highest point above the ground. Sometimes I get within 1. Sometimes I get it. I mean, sometimes you can be within 5 degrees, but you have the wrong sign. And then you got the wrong rising sign. And by the way, here's a key to whole sign houses. The midheaven degree, what is currently culminating, is not always in the 10th whole sign. I mean, in this case, we have Gemini rising and an Aquarius midheaven. The midheaven is currently in the 9th whole sign of the Gemini map. The highest point of the ecliptic in any given moment will always be in the 10th whole sign. The highest point of the ecliptic in any given moment is nonagesimal. It is square the ascendant. And if you're familiar, equal house system, which like the whole sign house system gives 30 equal degrees to each of the houses, but unlike the whole sign system, which starts with 0 degrees of the sign that is rising, the equal houses start with the ascendant degree, right? The equal house 10th cusp will show the nonagesimal. The equal 4th cusp will show the kind of opposite point, which is always the bowl, the depth of the bowl, the deepest part of the ecliptic beneath the ground. And they're not the zenith and the nadir. They're not right above our head or right beneath our feet, but they are the points of the ecliptic that are closest to those. So Gemini's rising, and that means the 10th whole sign, Pisces, will host the highest part of the ecliptic in this given moment. It's like a great celebration of whole sign houses. And I mean, from an astronomical point of view, we might say especially equal houses. But the midheaven is so crucial, right? The south separates, or if you're in the northern hemisphere, the north, the eastern side of the sky, which goes up, from the western side of the sky that goes down. And then we end up with quadrants, right? Because we also have the ground beneath our feet. So there's above the ground coming up, there's above the ground going down, and there's beneath the ground going down to the roots, and beneath the ground coming back up. So there's a long journey that hopefully will help you learn how to find the angles of the zodiac. in any given moment in time. We have the moon in Capricorn right now. We're talking about the framework of things, foundations, right? She's out of bounds. Hopefully this is a bit of a different thing for you. And yeah, I don't know. It's not something I've learned. I learned it from the sky. But it's the most important practice I have. When I get out to align to the cardinal directions, to find the midheaven degree, which of course gives me also the IC, and then to throw the discus, to follow the ecliptic curve so that I can find my way to the highest point in any given moment in time, and then by simply adding 90 degrees to that nonagesimal, I get the ascendant degree, and in this way, I'm seeing through the trees. Can you dig it? All right, we'll get out and practice this a ton, and the chart will really, well, let me say this, you'll really start learning how to see the chart in the sky, which will let you bring more of the sky into the chart. Much more than following the moon today, but I don't know, she's the fast teacher, and hopefully still this presentation of how to see the angles in space with your face was slow enough for you to receive the technique, and it will become yours only by getting away from this small computer screen and out to the big screen of the living sky. Here's to the marriage of heaven and earth, and here's to you, friends. This is your friendly astronaut Gemini Brett signing off. I will see you in space.